Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to yet another live chat session. Sorry for the delay. We had some technical issues that we had to sort out, so that's the reason why we had to start a 10-minute late. Today, okay, welcome to, as I said, welcome to yet another chat session presented by the Metascanning Club, hosted by me, Siddharth. Today's topic is all about boxers, the Peter Pan of dog breed. And we have with us Mr. Sham Mehta from Delhi. Mr. Sham Mehta is an international all breeds judge, breeder of boxers of international repute. I've seen Uncle breed only boxers for a very long time. I haven't seen Sham Uncle like handle or any other dog or breed any other dog for a very long time. So Next Step is one of the biggest names in the boxer breed in India. Thank you so much, Uncle, for agreeing and coming into our chat session to talk about your favorite breed, the boxers.
Thank you, Siddharth. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, as I said, you're one of the oldest boxer breeders that I have actually known. So it's nice to have you to talk about this wonderful breed. Let's not waste time. Let's get into our first question. Always the first question is going to be about the breed. Okay, why is boxer called the Peter Pan of dogs? And could you tell us a brief history about the breed as well?
Peter Pan, basically a boxer, it behaves like a small puppy till the day it dies of ripe old age. It still behaves like a puppy, even if he's like 12, 13, 14 years old. So that's the beauty of the breed. So that's why it's called the Peter Pan.
And what is the brief history of the breed as such? Internationally, where was the boxers? How did boxers come into existence? What was boxers' original intention of breeding this breed?
Boxers were basically derived from a breed called Bull Basers or Boar Basers, which are boar hunters or bull hunting dogs. I mean, they were used by butchers in Germany, and a pack of dogs would attack the bull. The bull was obviously tied with his neck with the tree, and the pack of the butcher's dogs were left on him, and they brought down the bull.
Okay.
Yeah, they brought down the bull when the blood level of the bull came down after a certain level. The protoplasm of the blood came down and the heart stops. And that was more of a game also. So the boxers basically, they were derived from Bull Basers.
Oh, nice. Bull baiting is something that happened in the ancient days. Does anything of that happen anywhere else as such right now, or are they now only for consummation shows? Are they used for anything like Schutzhund, like how German Shepherds and Dobermans are used for other various activities in the dog scenario? Are even boxers used for anything like that apart from consummation shows?
Boxers are used as guide dogs for blind and as sniffer dogs also. But I mean, there are other breeds, as we all know, who are more popular for these purposes. But not for bull baiting, definitely no. It's not legal, no. Right. And there were not boxers which were used for bull baiting. They were Bull Basers. So boxers were actually never legally used, or they were never bred for that purpose. They were bred as guard dogs and to protect the master and his territory.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah. So, what is your early remembrance or the history of boxer breed in India? I mean, who are your influencers in getting into this breed, or who motivated you to getting into this breed?
Actually, the boxer breed itself motivated me to get into the breed, not a person as such. Nice. But what I remember was I got my first boxer from Mr. Nariman Shakibai. I got a male and a female. Yeah, that was way back in 1994. So, and that time I knew Mr. Abhinav Dhar had Abhinav and Neeta, that's his wife. Perhaps I remember the name correctly. They had two boxers from Jacques, that's Rick Tomita, Jacques boxers in US.
Okay.
So they got the American dog from them, and the bitch was either an import one or probably they used the dog on some other bitch and they got the pick up the litter or something. And then of course Mrs. Leela Ratnam, late Mrs. Leela Ratnam, she
Yes.
introduced a lot of very good boxers in India, and she was like during the formative years she was very instrumental in getting some good boxers here.
That's true.
And after that, I have seen so many other breeders getting in boxers, like
Okay.
Mr. A.D. Sharma. He imported some dogs from Jicoin, Australia, Rosina Elephant Brace.
Yeah.
And then, then so many of them. And I mean, for last 25 years, I've seen so many people importing boxers.
Okay.
Even there was one Mr. Ajit Singh who got into nice dogs and then he migrated back to Canada. So he left the dogs with Professor Grewal. So it was a
Okay.
brindle dog and a fawn bitch, and they were like probably they lost the bitch while she was whelping. That was sad, but then they produced some good puppies. And then lately, Mr. Nagaraj Shetty also got a boxer from I think Mexico. Uh, Lucas Lee Garza or something. Yeah, it was a Mexican dog. And then
Nice.
Mr. Mukul Ved and
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Steve Almeida, Mr. Sharad Sharma. They've been importing a lot of dogs now
Yeah, I
for
think
last.
Mukul Uncle has been one of our old-time boxer breeders.
Yeah, they've been. I mean, I'm talking about last 25 years. I mean, who all have been
That is
importing
true.
dogs.
That's it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we will jump into one of the questions. I mean, somebody's asked us, Mr. Jeffrey's asked us, why should I go for a boxer breed? What are the characters does it possess?
Mr. Jeffrey. I mean, if a boxer intrigues you as the way it looks, with its unique looks, and it's a lot of dog in a small package, and very versatile. I mean, actually, a boxer can behave with the other person as per the other person's capacity.
Okay.
With the kids, he's very, very careful, and he will not be jumping or and with the elderly people he'll be the same, but if a youngster wants to wrestle with him, he's all game. So things like that. So the versatility of the boxer, and then they are muscular dogs, beautiful looking headpieces, very expressive, a lot of style, easy to maintain with the short coats, and not too much formal exercises needed for them. So all these things, I think they make a good package. They don't smell doggy. They smell of, I would say, freshly baked cookies. Actually,
That's the right way to
yes,
put
yeah, they do.
it. That's right. Right. I mean, definitely, I hope this answers your question. Yeah, they are a very, I mean, as I said, as you rightly said in the first question, like why Peter Pan or the dog? Yeah, boxers are always risky. They always tend to like, their first intention is, I think, is always to play with whoever has got them, and then they go on to whatever that is needed after that. So, as you said, like they are a very versatile breed. Okay, moving on to the next question, Uncle. How has the breed by itself evolved over a period of years? Has it evolved for the better, or has it gone down, or would you say that the boxers of the olden generation has been better than the younger, right now, the present crop that we have? How has it evolved?
There are two parts to this question. I mean, one is whether the breed has evolved for the betterment in India or internationally.
Okay.
So, I mean, in India, definitely the boxers have evolved in terms of the quality. What we used to see 25 years ago or 30 years ago, I mean, the boxer today is definitely much more correct and sound dog, and more stylish, more efficient, and
Okay.
beautiful headpieces. Unlike what we used to have that time, they're more refined now, definitely. In fact, I would like to quote a system by which you can actually substantiate your statement.
Okay.
If you can say it's evolved or not. If you know the ABC, the American Boxer Club National Specialty, they
Okay.
have it's an annual event, and they have a week-long dog show every year, which is the national show, and it
Okay.
goes on from Monday through Friday. So on Wednesday evenings, they have a competition called the Top 20 competition.
Okay.
In that competition, the top 20 dogs of that calendar year, or the previous year actually, which is like from 1st January till 31st December, the each dog which has defeated the most number of dogs. Like the first dog may have defeated 1950 dogs, and the 20th dog might have defeated 326 dogs, let's say, hypothetically. But
Okay.
all those 20 dogs are present that day. So
Oh.
what they do is, it's a jury of three judges who judge that top 20 competition. Two of them are confirmation breed specialists, and the third is the handler judge, who is
Okay.
actually a handler of long standing, but he or she is also a judge on that given day for the top 20 competition. So all the three judges are inside the ring, and then three dogs come in, and
Okay.
each dog is circulated amongst all the three judges one by one. And
Okay.
then there is a scoreboard. I mean, there is a mark sheet where to each trait, right, as per the standard, right from the head till the tip of the toe, and everything is described in those mark sheets. So they
Okay.
have to actually allocate marks in front of each trait of the dog,
Okay.
one by one. So what happens is, suppose there are so many things, I mean, including the head and the eyes and the proportion of the skull to the muzzle, the ear placement, the eye placement, the eye color, the forequarters, the top line, the underline, and the rear tail set. Everything is described in that. Plus the the response to the handler, the response to the judge, ring presence, animation, all these things are described there. And you have to allocate the marks in front of each of these traits.
Okay.
And there
Okay.
are marks already pre-texted marks allocated there. For example, for the head, there are 50 marks. And
Okay.
for the animation and presence, there are 50 marks. And
So
the
out
rest
of
of the
50,
yes, out of 200, the
out of
200
200. Okay.
out of 250 are for the head and 50 for the presence of the dog.
Presentation. Okay.
Presence,
Okay.
like the style of the dog, like
Right.
it's
Right. I
the
understand. I understand.
yeah.
Okay.
So those are the most two important factors of the breed, which means, and
Nice.
the rest of the 100 points are allocated against all the other features of the dog. So now it doesn't depend on the whims or fancies of the judge what marks he can allocate, because he has to be very specific.
Okay.
And then another objective, why I brought this point here is because of this question. The other objective of this kind of marking is that you can actually put in the data anywhere and see in which aspects the breed is doing better and in which
Okay.
aspect the breed
Aspect.
is going down, you know. So
Okay.
you have the data available for the breed enthusiast to look at. So they can compare the boxers 10, 20, 30 years ago or 50 years ago with the
Okay.
present boxers and know how it has evolved.
Okay. Nice. So you
Yeah.
you get a you so over I mean over a period of so many years, this data is actually is the data collected and then cross checked, or how is it?
It is available. I mean, if you want, you can order the data and you can see of all the years, and then you can keep on looking at the data if you have that kind of passion. The data is available there, and you can see which aspect has been getting, improved.
Improved or in, yeah. Actually, our next question is all about that only. Which aspect of the dog has improved? Which aspect of the dog has improved or deteriorated, would you think, over the period of so many years in this breed?
I have kind of tried to study that data. So I can answer this question. If without looking at that, data, if I answer this question, then it would be a sham, I would say. It's not correct. So I would say the head of the boxer has drastically improved in last 20-25 years. They have really improved. And the feet of the dog, the feet.
Yeah.
No, the feet. I'm talking about the feet. Actual feet. They've really improved. And then the top line of the dog has improved a lot.
And what are the minuses?
Which have improved.
So, what are the minuses of the breed right now? What do you think that is still yet to improve in the breed or can do better?
Are we talking about India?
India, internationally, in both contexts.
Internationally, I think I won't be even qualified to comment on that because it's a very wide subject. So it won't be right on my part to make any comments on that. But if you talk about India, yes, I can because I see the dogs here. So in India, the overall dog has to improve a lot. There are so many aspects. I mean, there is no consistent factor on which you can say this breed needs to be improved in this aspect, or because the dogs I see are very inconsistent. Very few of them are really good ones, but there is a lot of scope of improvement in all aspects. If you ask me, in all aspects. I can go part by part, but that doesn't, really serve the purpose.
That is true. We'll take a question from Mr. Dinkar. Since we are talking in line of the aspects of which is improved. His question is: do you feel that the boxer being bred in India in the last couple of years seem to have lacked of size and substance as compared to their counterparts in US? Are the US boxers also getting too refined and lacking substance in recent times, as seen in governments too in US?
Mr. Dinkar, there are certain kinds of lines going on in US. It is not just one type of boxer. I mean, if you very deeply study it, there are certain lines, and there are certain lines which are, you are right, are becoming too fine for some people's liking, and others are not like that. So it all depends where those dogs are coming from, but you cannot generalize this thing that the American boxers are losing in size and substance. No, I don't think that is correct.
Okay. Nice. Sam, Uncle, you were talking about the ABC's competition, right? Mr. Jay has asked this question in regards to that line. You had mentioned that 50 points out of 200 goes to the ring presence and the attitude of the dog being to the ring. While talking about boxers, also seem to be extremely sensitive. Does the temperament come from the genetic breeding or from the rising of the dog? He's basically asking about a very shy dog which is inside the ring. Is it a very genetical trait, or is it something that the breeder does when he breeds the dog? Is a mistake that the breeder does?
I think what he's asking two questions here. He's asking whether the ring presence and animation of the dog and that high-headed style that look at me, that style is genetic. And secondly, he's asking the boxer also seems to be extremely sensitive.
Yes.
sensitive in the terms, he's saying that some of the dogs are very spooky, shy.
Spooky, shy. Yeah, exactly.
So, the attitude, whether it's positive or negative, can be genetic as well as environmental.
Okay.
But that real outgoing attitude has to be genetic. You cannot inculcate that in a dog by training it or spending all the time in the world on him. It has to be, it has to be inborn. But the same dog who's born with that attitude, if environmentally you just put him in a kennel all his life, then he will also become spooky. I mean, he needs to go out and get socialized at a very early stage to to see all the sights and the sounds, the smells, even the loudspeakers at the dog show and traveling in the car, and then the fumes in the air. I mean, all those things, the dog has to be exposed to all those things. Only then he will be outgoing. If he is genetically outgoing, and if there is a dog who's genetically, like a dead wood, and you take him to the fish market every day, still he'll be like, he won't be, too outgoing.
Outgoing.
Yeah, that won't come in him. No.
That is true. So yeah, I mean, it is all in the way you bring up the dog as a puppy as well, I suppose. Like, what is the kind of exposure that you give?
Genetically, a dog has that in him, that trait.
Okay.
It has to come from the parents.
Okay.
But you can either make it shine, or you can succumb it. That's up to you. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay, what is an ideal boxer? I think Gauri is also asked a very similar question. What is an ideal boxer? What is the introduction of your breed standard? What is the breed standard as such?
The ideal boxer, I would say, is a medium-sized, square, short-backed dog with a lot of balance. There is no size disqualification of the breed as such.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, the standard, if we talk about the AKC standard, the size of the males is 22 to 24, 25. And for the females, it's 21 to 23. But there is no size disqualification.
Okay.
So, but ideally, the opening sentence of the standard says a boxer is a square, medium-sized, muscular-looking dog. Okay. And of course, the head is the highlight of the breed, so it has to be better than good. It has to be balanced.
Yeah, in terms of that system, like the head is the highlight of the breed, and I'm pretty much sure a cropped boxer is more attractive than a uncropped one. But with all the things that is going around in the world scenario where cropping and docking is all getting banned as such, how do you now foresee that? So what's your take on that? Since you say the head is the highlight of the entire breed as such.
In North America and South America, the dogs are all cropped and docked. But in Europe and Scandinavian countries and UK, even the Australia, New Zealand, the tail docking is banned, cropping is banned. But I would definitely give up the breed if the cropping. Let me tell you.
Yeah, as I said, like the cropping is the most. I mean, since you said the head is the most attractive part of the breed, the cropping makes a fully erect ears is actually one of the best things that you can see in Dobermans and boxers and such, right?
And Gauri, the style of the dog, it's very important. Showmanship, that's very important. I mean, the white markings are not important as many people here, they just die to have a flashy dog. But
Yeah, okay. In line to white markings, Sudarshan has asked a question. Most of the exhibitors preferred the white marking on the boxers. Tell me to what extent is the white marking permitted in boxers, and which part of the body in the white marking is permitted? Since you talked about white marking.
Mr. Sudarshan, I don't think you need an answer to this.
No, it's for the people to. This answers for all the other people that are watching the program. So
Okay. So the white mark, most prefer the white mark. Tell me what extent white marks. Okay. White markings cannot exceed 33% of the total body color. So
okay,
basically, it has to be the socks and the muzzle and the blaze and a little around the neck and on the chest, the forechest. But if you ask me, I see dogs with full white necks, a lot of white on the muzzle, and the full socks, front and rear, whole underbody is white. For me, they are disqualified. Actually, they
okay.
are they are more than 33%. We don't want too much white. We just want a little bit, a little bit on the muzzle and socks, and slightly a small marking on the neck, and that's all about it.
Okay.
Not more. They don't look very pleasing. It's too much white, and then people all over. I mean, all over US, they frown upon dogs who are too much white.
White mark.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that, barring Indians. Sorry.
Right, we'll move on to the next question, Shantu. Mr. Radhakrishnan Swaminathan has asked this question. Since we are talking about the breed standards, I thought we'll finish off all the breed standards related questions. The length of the neck is an important contributor of the enhance of the, in his general appearance. What is your interpretation of the ideal length of neck?
Mr. Radhakrishnan, the ideal neck of a boxer should be a medium-sized neck.
Okay.
It can't be too long. It doesn't have to be too long. The other day I was seeing a picture on the Facebook or somewhere, and the neck of that bitch was looking like a giraffe, and she had many likes and many comments. Let's go back to the original purpose of the breed. They were bull and basers. Just imagine a dog hanging on to the nose of the bull, and the bull trying to, throw the dog away.
Yeah, that's true.
The only coupler between the dog's torso, the body proper, and the head is the neck. And a long neck cannot withstand in this environment for more than a minute. We don't want that. We want medium length, muscular neck. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Now the question of breeding. I would ask you this question. Okay, breeding and rearing of puppies. How difficult is it with boxers, and how to choose a puppy? Like in a sense, this question is more in terms of the boxer being a short-faced dog. I mean, most of the dogs which have a short face have difficulty in breeding as such. So, how difficult is breeding a breed like this?
Breeding boxers is not difficult. I mean, it's just like any other breed, I would say. I mean, just to actually, biologically breed boxers is not difficult. Sometimes you can have cleft palates. That's with all flat-faced dogs, and you just keep on giving some folic acid during the gestation, and that usually, takes care of it. But then breeding a good boxer is extremely difficult. It's not easy. By no means. By no means.
How do you choose a puppy then? How do you choose a good boxer? Like over the period of so many years, I'm pretty sure that you had a lot of litters, and I'm sure that you have retained a lot from your own breeding as well. So how do you know that this puppy is the best of all the puppies that you have bred in that litter?
What I have learned over past 25 years at my own cost, I cannot, answer here before, this gentleman can blink an eyelid. I just cannot. I know. I mean, if I look at the dog, I know which is the best puppy. I can't, vocalize it here. Yeah.
But what you look for in a puppy, as you choose a puppy for a show purpose or for anything, what is it that you look for, and what catches your eye at that point of time?
The one that is nearest to the breed standard, the one that is balanced, the one that is very stylish at that age.
Okay.
Yeah.
At that age, yes, that's perfect.
That's it. It's simple. Yeah. Now
Okay,
the finer points cannot be, described here. That has to be like a practical one-on-one thing. I mean, if we have a litter of puppies and then we can, do critique on each puppy and then place them there, and what's right with one puppy, what's not with the other. That can only happen when we physically, the puppies are there and we can place each puppy, and then you understand what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right, that's good. Compare it and then choose it, see how it is, see how the puppies are. Between the puppies, see which is the best, or as I rightly said, which fits the breed standard at that particular age in the right way.
Absolutely.
In terms of breeding, this is something that I think a lot of breeders would want to know. Just not in boxer, I think in all breed aspects of it. What is better, in line breeding or inbreeding or outcrossing?
Actually, line breeding and inbreeding are in no way different. I would say there is a very thin hairline kind of a difference between both these things. Because even if we, let's look at what Mendelism says. That's the most respected and acknowledged study on genetics. I mean, Mendel says that even if my parents produce 7 lakh offsprings after me, then there is a probability that one of them, after the 7 lakh offsprings, one would be exactly like me. Which means if you pick up 2 male puppies from one litter, they are neither genetically not physically identical to each other. So if you take a inbreeding, which is like, you can also call it incest breeding, which is brother, sister, or father, daughter, or son and mother. So genetically they are different. You also must have experienced, and the other viewers, that there can be 2 dogs from the same litter, and one is producing absolutely different level of puppies, and the other one isn't with the same type of bitches. So genetically they are not the same.
That is true.
So actually, when you are line breeding, what you are doing is you are trying to bring in the closely related dogs, like grandfather to granddaughter or half brother, half sister. So what exactly you're doing is that when you breed them, and if you get the desired results, then actually inbreeding has happened.
Okay.
The like has met the like. Only when the like meets the like, I'm talking about the genes. Only when the like meets the like, you will get what you want. And on paper, it might appear as if it is line breeding. It is actually inbreeding.
Okay.
We got to do another session of 1 hour on this if you want.
We can.
I cannot explain this in a very condensed manner.
But yeah, in a sense, what about outcrossing as such? You're talking about line breeding and inbreeding. Which is outcrossing?
If you're doing outcrossing, you want a trait which does not, which is lacking in your breeding program, and you want to bring in that. But then just going out in one generation will not fix it. You have to go out at least 2 to 3 times, and then you can bring in what you want, like more bone or whatever. I mean, more pigment, better eyes, better
Okay.
style. You got to go out time and again, at least 2, 3, 4 generations, and then you can fix that in your germplasm of your stock.
Okay.
Otherwise, you just outcross once, then nothing happens. Half of the puppies are, like one parent, and the other half are like the other parent. If one is more dominant, then let's say the sire is dominant, then most of the puppies probably look like him, but genetically they may not be like him. If you use them again, they might not produce their own type.
Okay.
You understand? You
Yes.
have to fix it. You got to fix it. So you got to go out again and again.
So it's basically a lot of permutation and combination is what you basically say. You have to have the high end. It's like yes, it is a lot of mathematically. I won't say mathematically equation, but a lot of permutation. Looking at
There is no mathematics, no mathematics in breeding.
but I know that like there is a lot where you have to see and then see where you need to improve the breed in which aspect that you want to improve your line of stock. So that's when you try and do something like an outcrossing, right?
Siddharth, I would like to tell you something. I have been using frozen semen from dogs which have been deceased like 10, 20, 30 years ago. They are like the classic and vintage dogs of the boxers in US.
That's
I'm not sure if you want to talk about the commercials here, but just to
no,
give
no.
you a ballpark figure, no, not commercial. I'm not quoting any figures. I'm just giving you an example in
Okay.
relative terms. If I
Okay.
want to import an average priced American champion from US, it is probably lesser than what one spends on buying the semen and then getting the bitch to US and getting her artificially inseminated, which is surgical endoscopic procedure, and keeping her there for another month or 6 weeks, and then getting her back here. So, and probably the live dog, if you get him here, you can use him 100 or 200 times in his lifetime for 8, 9, 10 years. And this is just one breeding. And
Okay.
the textbook says that frozen semen, I mean, artificial insemination using frozen semen, the success rate is 0 to 60%.
Okay.
So if you are going for that, that means you are rejecting all the male dogs in your kennel. You're rejecting all the stud dogs in your country, all the live stud dogs in US, and you are going to a dog which has been deceased. Because there is a reason behind that. There's a title called Sire of Merit.
Yeah.
It's a dog which has produced 7 champions in the US,
Yes.
and a bitch which has produced 4 champions is known as a Dam of Merit. That
Okay.
discrimination, obviously, because a male can produce every day, but female can produce probably, once in 6, 7, 8 months.
6, 7 months.
Yeah. So 7 and 4. And there is a title called Legion of Merit, which
Okay.
means a dog which has produced 4 producers. They can be either 4 Sire of Merits or 4 Dam of
Or dam
Merits,
of
or,
okay.
or whatever permutation, but 4 producers. Because Sire of Merit and Dam of Merit are producers.
Okay.
And the Legion of Merit is a dog which is producing producers.
Okay.
So no dog has ever become a Legion of Merit when he is living.
Okay. Yeah. And
Cannot. Practically
cannot. Yeah.
cannot.
Practically cannot. Yes. Exactly.
And any frozen semen which I have used till now are all Legion of Merit. And I
Oh.
still have a lot of breedings in the semen bank in US and Canada. And they
Nice.
are all Legion of Merits. So they are proven. I mean, we were
Okay.
talking about line breeding
Yeah.
or, choice of. So when you're using those dogs, you are 1000% sure that you will get what you want.
Okay.
but it's not irrespective of the bitch which you are using. She's equally important. So perhaps the bitch is also out of a frozen semen litter.
Okay.
And so is the bitch's mother.
Nice. Yeah.
So everything, I mean, it's simple mathematics is that in a 5-generation pedigree, there are 62 dogs. Even if I make my pedigree 5 generations, it's going to be 62 people. That's maths.
Yeah.
So you got to know all those 62 dogs and what virtues and faults they pass on to their progeny. And the dogs which are sire of merits or legion of merits, their own production capabilities and the production capabilities of their ancestors are undeniable.
Okay.
So you are at the least risk.
Okay.
And you know what you should anticipate and expect.
That's good.
And that's precisely what one is doing when he's opting for this kind of a breeding.
Okay.
We can do another session on this.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds very interesting, as I said.
It's a very long,
yeah, very long. But yeah, you summed it up quite well. Like you need to know, yeah, as I said, you need to know the ancestors, as I said, like the faults or the good points of your lineage for you to make that decision. Yes, that's absolutely right. Okay, moving on. I mean, let's dive into the other questions that we have. This is a common question that we have amongst all our viewers in almost all our chat sessions. So we put this up. Is there any? Okay, first part of the question is there any difference in the standards of the FCI and AKC? One, because few of the breeds do have it. Does Boxer also have any differences in standards? The second part of this question is basically a comment that has been asked by almost a couple of our breeders, couple of our viewers. Like, what are like I'll just put up one as such. Miss Preeti Jaswal has asked. Good evening, sir. What is the notable type difference between American type and European type boxers? Like, yeah, this is something that we get asked very normally in most of our chat sessions about the American type and the European type of dogs that is there.
Good evening, Preeti. There is not much of a difference between the FCI and AKC standard as such. Not much.
Okay.
But the interpretation of the standard is different in different parts of the world.
Okay.
And the actual difference between the European dog and the American dog is very simple. I mean, the American dogs are more elegant with, slightly longer necks and more chiseled head pieces and more fine, elegant, high on leg. They've got a lot of, elegance and they move better rear quarters. And in the European dogs, they're more, stubby dogs with very short necks, not much in the rear, and the eyes are, they're going from bad to worse. Sorry about that. And the heads are like very big and coarse. I mean, they're almost, sometimes as big as a table. So I don't like them. Sorry. We follow the American dogs here. I mean, American boxers. So that's what that's
okay. But is there a discrimination when it comes to like there are a lot of European judges who prefer, that's more of a preference, I suppose. Like the European judges tend to prefer the European type of dogs, and the American judges tend to prefer the American type of dogs. Is that something that you see almost everywhere?
Yeah, that's a trend. So you can't change it. I mean, no one can change that. It's what you personally like, I would say. If you like the European type, you can raise and breed European type dogs. If for me, the American dogs take my breath away, so I always want to hold on to them. Yeah,
that's right. Okay. In related to like talking about breed standards, there are a couple of questions on this as well. How important is dentition in this breed? As a specialist judge, how much emphasis do you lay on it? we have a couple of other questions in relation to the tooth, the dentitions of this breed as such.
I think dentation is very important in the boxer breed, because if there is something wrong with the dentation, the dog will show its teeth even when the mouth is closed. It can even show the tongue. So
Okay.
it can be a disqualification. So it's so important. You want me to describe how the teeth should be?
Yeah, please go ahead.
You know, the basically it's the formation of the jaw.
Okay.
This is the fulcrum. This is the fulcrum of the jaw. So from here, how the angle of the lower jaw is in relation with the upper jaw is very important. That's why you
Okay.
see the undershot, the undershot and slightly upturning of the lower jaw. This is very important.
Okay.
And the space between the upper and the lower incisors is also important. It should be, not too wide, not too much. Otherwise, the teeth will tend to come out. And
Okay.
then the the incisors here should be, in a straight line and should be as wide as possible, so that the canines are far apart. They're set far apart and they are obliquely placed. So that is one, the dentation. And the second is that when the dog closes the mouth, then the upper canine should, snugly fit with the lower canines. That's also very important. If it doesn't, then what people usually refer to as wry is when this thing is misaligned. On one side, they are snugly fitting, but on the other side, they are not. So it's like a misalignment of the total jaw.
Okay.
But sometimes people call when the dog is showing the teeth, it's a rhyme. Or no, that's not right. This is right. That's like too much protruding of the lower jaw towards the front. It's just too much. So that is one factor. And the other factor which gives the mouth its beauty is the texture of the upper lips.
Okay.
So basically, I'll just quickly repeat. One is the angle, the fulcrum, and the angle of the lower jaw in relation with the upper jaw, the formation of the jaw, basically. Then the teeth, these should be oblique, and they should be like as far as they should be very wide. That's why when the upper lips, which should be ideally of a thick texture, thick and padded, will come and rest and cover the lower jaw, which is slightly overshot and protruding outwards. And it should rest on the chin.
Okay.
Even if you view it from the side or front, the chin should be, you should be able to view the chin. If you can't do that, it should be seriously penalized.
Okay. So yeah.
And if you view at the muzzle from front or side or top or bottom, any direction, it has to be square.
Okay.
And that will only happen when the dentation is right. You don't need to open a boxer's mouth. You don't need to. If you know what is inside. If you know it here, you don't need to open it. You can see it from outside.
Right. In relation to breed standards, we have another question from Mr. Jayasama. He basically asked about the movement of the dog. The boxer is a compact, square dog, but there is always a view that the dog which is slightly longer is able to achieve better reach and movement. What are your views and beliefs on this?
I think a boxer it has to be a square dog. And if it's a square dog, that's when it moves in the correct fashion. It may be a visual illusion that a dog which is long in body or long in line, they're two different things. is moving better. It is not correct. It is not efficient. It cannot be efficient. It just cannot. It's simple. It's physics. It's the levers. If it's too long, then the rear foot cannot come under the body where it should. Cannot come to that point. The hind cannot come under the body to the position where it should ideally come, because the length of the body is restricting it to come there. And if it cannot come there, then obviously when it is giving the drive to the spine, it's pushing the spine forward, the body will sway. There will be dissipation of energy. It will be inefficient. The dog will get tired. If it's short backed, it will be like a clockwork rhythm. Because it's correct. The levers are correct. The physics is correct. And the dog works like a well-oiled machinery. That's how it should be. Cannot be long.
Okay. So yeah, right. We were talking about white boxers some time back, and this is something that we wanted to know. Okay, what is your take on white boxers on the European nations have amended their standards to enable them participation in conservation shows and in breeding? So what is your take on this? But I think I know from whatever I know, white boxers are generally used for breeding and not for conservation, right?
In different countries, they have different code of ethics for breeders. Some places the breeders follow the code of ethics, some places they don't. And other countries, there are no code of ethics for breeders in terms of breeding from white boxers is concerned. There is nothing written, nothing laid down. So it's all different everywhere. But if you ask me, I personally feel we should not breed out of white boxers. There is no particular reason for it, but it's just a personal this thing. In the ABC in US, it is against the code of ethics to breed out of white boxers. They have to be neutered or spayed and placed as pets, or placed as pets as puppies, and with a contract saying that when they are adults, when they're adults, we'll kind of spay or neuter them, won't breed out of them. So, and I would also like to add one thing here, that white boxers are actually white. Some people treat them as albinos. They're not albinos. They are white. They have pigment. They have black noses. They have black lips, black eye rims, black nails, sometimes black pads. They don't have colored patches over the body proper, but they sometimes have patches over the ear or the eye, and that shows what color genes is he carrying. And there's another interesting thing I would like to tell you, that if you breed out of a white boxer, you should expect the same results which you expect out of a boxer which is fully marked. Identical results. Nothing will change. Because white is not a gene. White is just, I can't recall the term. It's called something, but it's not a gene. The color producing gene of a white boxer is identical to a flashy boxer, a fully flashy boxer, because I can categorize them in the flashy boxer in 3 different categories. And then the permutation combination. What if you breed them with a plain or 2 semi-flashies, or a flashy with a semi-flashy, and no, I can go on. But the fully flashy boxer, his or her color producing gene is identical to a white boxer.
Okay. Nice. Okay. That's good. Right now, Mr. Thinker asked a question, and we have another question in this thing. What are the dogs that you've imported till now, and what are your breeding programs going on? And Mr. Thinker has also asked a question in relation to that as well. I'll just put it up. what's your own secret of breeding boxers, as you are the only breeder in India who has stuck to the breed for 25 years and continues to do so and produce dogs competing overseas. So what is your breeding program and what is your secret in that as well?
Siddharth, I think we can do another session on this. It will be too
we will
much.
keep, we will make it brief and
Believe me, I cannot.
but what is your breeding program as such in terms of where is your kennel headed?
What all dogs have I imported till now? I mean, they are all meaningless names. I mean, if somebody knows those dogs and I keep on saying the names, they will relate with the dogs. Others don't know those dogs. They will just listen at the names and say, what names are these? I mean, so you really want to know the names? I can.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Now let's narrow it down. Let's say name the 3 best dogs of your kennel, one, and the 3 best dogs that you have seen overall, internationally or India wise.
I will just, in no particular order, I will just name you. I'll name for you the favorite dogs which come to my mind, but
Okay.
doesn't mean they are the best and the others are not, better than them. They are all
Okay.
better than each other for me,
Okay.
if you understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So I had a bitch called Next Steps Dreams Come True.
Okay.
So she finished in US and Canada, and of course India. And I had bred her using a frozen semen of a Legion of Merit.
Okay.
And her mother was also an American champion, and she was a Dam of Merit. And
Okay.
I received the Dam of Merit award for her at the ABC. And I was humbly proud to do that because I finished her champions. So I'm just telling you about my
Yes.
homebred dogs,
Yeah.
not the dogs that I've imported.
Okay.
So Next Steps Dreams Come True,
Dreams
and
Come
then
True.
I had Dreams Come True, and then Next Steps Made of Velvet. She was
Okay.
also a very nice bitch, and she produced some very good dogs for me. And I took her back to US. She herself was imported. I bred her in US, and her father was Evo's Reflection of Breaker. That is the Legion of Merit too.
Okay.
And I bred her to 2 other dogs, 2 other frozen semen implants I did on her. So she was also nice. And then I had a female called Next Steps Goldfinger, which I exported to Thailand as a puppy. And she was the #1 boxer in Thailand for 2 years.
Oh,
And Ione Foster, who's a breeder of repute in US, she bought her and took her from Thailand to US, and then she finished in US for her. And she was also competing for the top 20, but I'm not sure if she made it or not. But she was trying, and she was exceptionally good.
all
So
right.
these
So
are
these are your
yeah.
3 dogs from your kennel. So can you name us 3 dogs that you have seen, other breeders or other from other countries or other or inside India?
Which are not owned by me.
Yeah, not owned by me. That who's really impressed you in this over a period of so many years.
Vancroft's Prime Time.
Okay.
That's a flashy brindle dog. And I saw him perform at the ABC Top 20 competition in 1997. And
Okay.
he was a previous winner. He was a 1995 Top 20 winner. But he was there only for exhibition. He wasn't competing there. And her handler was Ida Baum. And Ida Baum handling Vancroft's Prime Time. And his call name was Odie, outstanding dog.
Oh,
That
nice.
was, that dog really took my breath away. And even his father was a very nice dog, Misty Valley's Curtain Call. And another dog I can never forget is Rosen's Corporate Raider.
Okay. Where is it from?
He's from Rosen's Kennel, but I went to a breeder friend of mine in New Hampshire,
Okay.
New Hampshire, to her kennel, and she was handling this dog. She was campaigning this dog,
Okay.
and that dog was really very nice. I'm telling about the live dogs I've seen, and I've
Yeah, yeah.
appreciated, really
Yes.
appreciated.
Yes.
And then there's another dog which everybody knows, Capri's Wooden Spellcaster. His call name
Okay.
is Loki. So
Okay.
Diego was handling the dog at the ABC, and I found him very nice. And in fact, Loki's grandfather is Kyle's dynasty. So
Okay.
Loki has been number one in US, and his
Okay.
father is Wooden's Crown Sable, and Crown Sable's father is Kyle's dynasty. So I used Kyle's dynasty semen on my bitch, which produced my American Canadian champion bitch,
Oh, nice.
China. Yeah.
Nice.
So
Super. Right. Right, Uncle. I think we're just about running out of time, and we have a lot of questions that we have not been actually able to cover, but we will definitely get to it in the offline section of it. Yeah, I mean, we are out of time at the moment. As you said, there are a lot of topics that we can actually do as another session by itself, I suppose. Like, yeah, like the interesting topic about inbreeding and line breeding and
yes,
your
that would be nice. Yeah.
yes, we would definitely do another session for sure. Thank you so much, Uncle, for taking. I know you have been traveling a lot, and I know you've been tired, but
I'm
thank
in
you
the
for
Himalayas now. I'm in the Himalayas, up
right,
there,
right.
closer to the gods.
Closer to the cards. Yeah, and I know you're pretty tired, but you took the time to sit and answer those questions and do a live chat session, educating the people about the breed. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this for us, Nakul.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you, everybody. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you so much, guys. Watch out for our next session. That's going to be on the next weekend. We'll have another interesting topic with another interesting speaker. Till then, stay home, stay safe, and thank you so much. Bye, guys.